Hey there, welcome back to Ever After Stained Glass. I'm Nina, and today we get to do a Monstera leaf. These things are so beautiful. Whenever I was picking out the glass, I wanted to make sure that all the glass was going to be iridescent, which has that rainbow sheen on the top of the glass. That way when the sun catches its face, it would ricochet a beautiful rainbow. I'm so excited to show you guys the end product. It's beautiful. My first step was creating the template for Monstera leaf. I have quite a few Monstera plants at my home, so I just picked my favorite one out and sketched it on my Microsoft Surface Pro into Clip Studio Paint. Once I had the final template that I was happy with, I numbered it. I tried out a couple of colors that I knew the glass that I had that had the rainbow sheen, and then I printed it out in black and white to save ink, because you know you gotta save some money. I printed 2 copies. One, I cut out each piece so I can use the pieces as templates with a Sharpie on the glass that you see me cutting out here. The second one I laminated because that will be my template whenever I go to put my pieces together. I laminate it so that it's protected from the water that gets on the paper whenever I'm grinding. And I really need that template whenever I'm grinding to ensure my pieces are exactly the shape and the outline that I need them to be to line up perfectly later. So after I scored all of the pieces and broke the glass to exactly as close as I can to those Sharpie lines, I'll just go in and check to make sure there's no extra big pieces that I need to take off with my Grozer pliers. I then take my pieces over to the grinder and get off the glass that still has Sharpie lines on them. This will make them fit really nice into the template that I have up above. Now my grinder is inside of a 20-gallon breeder aquarium, and this just keeps the glass from going behind, to the sides, or on top of the area that I'm working on. And it also helps protect it from shooting and flying in my hair and later getting in my eyes. And it's super easy to clean. I just take a rag and I wipe it off and it's good to go. And it's nice because I can see through the whole entire area, and at the top of the tank I can put my template so that whenever I'm working on these pieces, I have the template like right in front of my face. My face is just outside of the bottom side of the frame. I'm surprised that you guys don't wind up seeing my face or hair because my head is so close to that template, and it helps me because I can really gauge where I need to cut, how it needs to fit, so that I have a really tight and uniform piece whenever I go to stick this thing together, which ultimately is what you want. Because if you have pieces that aren't very snug, you'll have gaps, and then your solder will flood, and you'll have to pack it with some copper somehow, and that's just a headache that nobody wants. Because Lord knows I don't need that kind of drama in my life. After I got the Sharpie off with alcohol, I cleaned the pieces really well, got them super dry, especially the edges, and made sure there wasn't any extra grinder dust that was on there. I foiled the pieces. Didn't show that. It takes a long time, and I know you guys aren't about that life, so I just omitted that piece. This is probably my favorite look of the piece, when the glass is just foiled. It's so beautiful. I don't know what it is about it, but that copper, it just makes the pieces pop. If I could somehow keep it this way, I totally would, because it's got my heart thumping every time I see it with any project that I work on. It steals my heart. I mean, come on, look at that. It's gorgeous. But we must proceed. Here's a few items that you'll need for the next step. Please keep in mind, y'all, whenever I give suggestions or recommendations, this is based on the products specifically that I use, and I've made a list on Amazon that I've linked in the description for y'all that includes all of these items, their prices, And if you want to get started with stained glass, or you need to order something else, or you'd like to try what I'm using, it's in that list, and you can totally just go to the list and add it to your cart and just buy it right from there instead of doing researching. I know that's what I did whenever I started watching YouTube videos on how to do stained glass, and about drove me nuts. I didn't know what I was looking at to begin with. So I know that this list will definitely help you if you're new. If I had this tool, it would have just helped me so much. So here I'm just going through and picking up different things. I went over the wipes, that's to keep the lead off of your hands. Heavy metals, you know, it prevents from cross-contamination. If you are working with lead and then you go to pick up your phone, well, now your phone has lead on it. So you want to keep your hands really clean and your workspace very clean. Using those wipes have really come in handy for me. And then I've got the tip tinner to clean my soldering iron, to keep it having nice flow with the solder, and the tip cleaner, and my flux, and my flux brush, and my painter's tape, and my 60/40 lead, and my respirator, and the fume fan, and of course the safety glasses and gloves. So I hope this helps y'all. If you have any suggestions on different products that you all use that I might enjoy whenever you guys watch this and see different things that I deal with, definitely suggestions are always welcome. I love them. Ooh, there's that pretty foil glass again. Now just get them real nice and snug. Make sure they're even, they're exactly how you want them to be, butt it up against the foil lines as close as possible, and then you tape the pieces of foil that are touching each other so that you can get them nice and connected. Because whenever you're done, you're going to want to flip this over. So we're going to flip, 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 Philadelphia, flip, 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 Philadelphia. And then first we're going to solder the back. So let me just state one more time, my recommendations are for the specific items and products that I use. This Weller 40 watt I got from Amazon, and it's got a variable heat adjuster. And with this specific one, I have to put the heat little nozzle between 4 and 5. Typically you want your temperature to be between 7 and 800, so 7 to 750 is ideal. But of course they didn't put a temperature numbers on there, they just put 1 through 5. It doesn't make any sense, but I've been using it long enough. If I keep it between the 4 and the 5, it's good. I used to hold the spool of solder, but that's a pound of solder that you're holding for this project. I was soldering for about 2.5 hours, and it just kills my wrist. So I just cut strips about a foot long each, and I wound up using like 4 on this specific project. What you just saw me do, I used tip tinner to clean soldering iron tip. And you'll know that you need to tin the tip if your soldering iron tip is dingy and it isn't shiny. So just know that if your soldering iron tip isn't shiny, you need tip tinner. Try saying that 3 times fast. The tip tinner acts like a catalyst. It makes sure the heat goes from the barrel of the soldering iron into the tip, and then from the tip, that tin goes through it so that it heats up the actual solder you're trying to heat up. I hope that makes sense. And if not, give it a goog. This line iron was losing heat. It wasn't getting up to that 750 temperature. So there is a fan on in the background, and I think it just caught some wind, and the iron just got too cool. And whenever it gets too cool, it winds up making the solder stick to the lead because the lead cools too quickly. It's my iron that I'm using. I haven't ever used any other iron. Again, I am in my 7th month of stained glass, And in the future, I might get another solder. If you'd like to leave a recommendation on great ones that you've found to aid you in your craft, I would love the recommendation. I'm all ears. In the future, I will definitely buy a new one. For now, I'm again giving myself grace and know that if I'm struggling now with something that might be faulty, I'll just be that much better whenever I have a soldering iron that works wonders. If you ever build up your seam of your solder too high against an edge of a piece, you'll notice that the solder will drip to the side of the piece and kind of make a little pool. Well, in my case, I made two really big pools of solder that kind of melts off of the piece. That's okay. Later, you'll see that how I go in and fix that. You'll see here what happened is my solder again was just losing too much heat. It wasn't staying hot enough. And you say, well, why don't you just turn it up a little bit? I've noticed that in the past, using this specific iron, if I turn up the heat more than 750, it's like 90 to nothing with the heat. It gets so hot, and it winds up just not keeping a very good bead on the actual piece because it just gets too hot. So I try to just kind of work with it. I know that I'm not gonna get like a perfect bead, but I do go in and you'll see me fiddle with things because I'm trying to fix that. But again, later this is just gonna serve me, and I choose to allow my struggles to serve me rather than hinder me. And know that your struggles can serve you too. So this is a new technique that I just did on the fly. There is a girl that I follow, it's Colorado Stained Glass. I'm so in love with her work. She is so talented and she just inspires me so much. I've never seen how she makes her little hooks on her pieces, but I did have some pinned coppered wire that I had the hardest time with getting off that darn pencil. I don't know why I chose a pencil. I have paintbrushes that are plastic. It'd have been so easy to just slip it off of one of those. Anyway, you live and learn, don't you? I know I do. So now that I kind of have the piece that I think she might do hers like, I just make the two little tails pronged with a little gap so that each prong could go on either side of the stained glass. Like I said, I did this on the fly. Had I thought of this before I even started my project, I would have not built up so much solder there, but we're just gonna go on the fly, see what happens. Well, I know what happens, but you guys don't know what happens yet. Anyways, I just kind of measure it out, adjust it how I want, and try to get the prongs as straight down the lines of solder as I can. And I think this is really smart that she did, because the structural integrity of stained glass is super important. All of the weight, all of that glass, all of that metal is just resting on this one key point. So it's really important that you have really good structural integrity for your piece so that it doesn't wind up falling off the chain just randomly and then your project falling apart. So I got the solder real hot there and just kind of melted it up underneath and added solder to the top of it to just build it up, to make that wire one with the piece. And then I flip it over and I do the same thing to the other side. I straighten her out. I think this is just so genius. I don't know if Colorado Stained Glass came up with this idea, but it is just brilliant, and it just blends in so well. As long as you just build up that solder line, it looks great and it works great, and you don't have to buy little loops that move around, and it's genius, genius, genius. So I'm really excited about it, if you can't tell. So now I'm going in. You want to make sure you turn your solder down, your soldering iron down. I put mine back down to 4, closer to 700 instead of 750. Whenever you tin these foil edges, you see I'm going really lightly and really quickly over these edges. If you get these foil edges too hot with your solder, it'll burn right through the adhesive. And then your edges will start lifting and cracking and not holding your piece together, and it looks awful. The second piece I ever did, this happened. I worked so hard on the piece. I tried to put super glue on it. It was a catastrophe. And I don't even put a lot of pressure. I just kind of tap, tap, tap lightly all the way down, building up the solder around it, trying to get it as smooth as possible. This isn't the final look of it because you'll still have to go in on the sides to build up the solder edges like I'm doing here. Forewarning guys, there's a lot of blurriness here. I think my auto adjust on my camera is so amazing until something like this happens and I'm like, are you kidding me? All that footage is just gone to waste, but you guys can kind of get the gist. So you always want to use flux, whether it be you're just tinning the edges, and that's the term. So whenever you go and you just cover the foil with the solder, you're just tinning it. So whenever you hear, just go in and tin the edges. Oh look, I'm melting off that solder pool. So you're just tinning the edges. I say build up because that makes more sense to me. Because I don't just want to cover it, I really kind of want to build up the solder there so that it's got more structural integrity about it. So I just go through and solder all the way around the edges and try to build it up. Make sure that your area that you're building up is even, because if it's not even, it'll just go and run right off the side. And here I just kind of skip because you guys can't see me getting in those holes and building up and tinning the inside of those Monstera leaves. Now you'll just go in and I use quick clean to get the flux off of it so that it won't just keep eating into my lead. And then I clean my hands and I go in and I buff out all of the wax that I previously waxed my piece with. I let it sit for like overnight just so that I make sure it just can absorb as much of that wax as possible. And then I go in the next day and I get this gorgeous Monstera stained glass Suncatcher, nice and clean and buffed and shine. Look at that beauty. Put the chain on her pretty little hook. Oh, it's so pretty. Look. Y'all, thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. Time is such a valuable resource, so for y'all to spend the last 18 minutes with me means so much. And I'm grateful for y'all. In the words of DJ Khaled, I appreciate you. If y'all want to see more, make sure that you're subscribed. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see me make next time, please leave them in the comments below. And if you're on TikTok or Insta, come find me. I'll catch y'all next time. Oh my gosh, look at that rainbow. Oh my gosh, look at that rainbow. Okay, I'm really going now. Bye!